such as
No,
we have on
that's
the
just,
agenda.
that's our board policy. It's just a question that came up. That's a good one that
We will follow the agenda
we
procedures.
followed traditional
per the
board
Brown Act.
policies. Okay, so those are the,
Did we include the reference checks?
yes.
No.
No, that wasn't.
I
I thought
have
that
the
was in part-
superintendent verify the legal data.
And,
Who?
and
The
and
superintendent?
add, and reference.
And reference check by the superintendent's office.
Did we
The
move away from that?
superintendent or his designee.
No, I don't think we should move away from having the option of independently as trustees verifying the information if we choose. So I would appreciate if the motion
So-
stayed
so-
with the applicant being,
On the references?
yeah, on the
So
references.
we're not requesting the superintendent president to confirm
No.
those? Okay? right.
Yeah. So one thing I want to make sure we're clear on,
On the questions there, go ahead.
so this motion operates under the assumption that we will select an applicant on September 11th, regardless of how many ties, how many rounds we go. So we're going to be here till, whenever until we make a selection. And
And-
that's the final meeting.
Let me ask a question that I forgot, I asked it previously. Are there some legal restraints on we have to have someone seated by a point in time? I think that's why it was really the
Right.
driving.
September 13th.
That's why.
Okay.
Okay, I knew there was some legal reasons why.
Excuse me. And I would remind everybody that in the resolution that was adopted, we said that the board reserves the right to appoint somebody who didn't apply in the event of an inability of the board to make a decision. And what that is designed to do is really straightforward. If it's the 11th and we've gone on for a long time and we can't agree on anybody, it's more important to the district to save the $390,000 that it would cost to put on the election than it would be to not appoint somebody. So what we can do, we don't have to do, but there's an out. But the reason for the out is not because this is a sneaky bypass of the process, but it says in the event of the inability to make a decision, the board reserves the right to do that. It's part of the proposition.
How do we do that?
And that was in the original application. That's standard.
Let's talk about how, in the event that we end up in that situation, how would we make that determination?
I would presume that people would nominate people and then they would be voted on.
At that meeting?
Yeah, you pretty much have to be.
Okay.
I have never heard that take
Yeah.
place, but that's why we did put that on all the applications. It's just a standard boilerplate that I've seen on other community colleges when they've gone through this process. So
Yeah,
let's
I
hope we
haven't
don't
seen
reach
it, but-
that point, but it
President
is
Keller,
there.
could you clarify what the change you made to checking the references? You removed it from,
We did not have, the only thing we're asking for is the verification of the legal data. That's it.
and we don't know who will check references, or anybody may.
No, there's no reference at all, there's no references to references. That's great. So no, that's it. So do you want to give it, so the motion will be, you want to read through them again for the record? One more time, please?
You want me to read them again?
Yes, please.
That number one, that the superintendent will verify all legal data. Number two, all applicants will be interviewed at the September 9th board meeting in random order. They will be allowed 5 minutes of a self-introduction, followed by the questions from the board. Number three, all applicants are to be rated by each trustee privately, and all scores will be calculated by,
Collated.
will be what?
Never mind, sorry.
Will be calculated or tallied, however word you want to use,
Smithing.
by Eva Bagg, our Dean of Institutional Effectiveness. It is to be reported out, the top 3 to 5 ranking to be interviewed at the September 11th meeting at 6 p.m. Number 4, Board President Keller.
Can I stop
Yes.
for 1 second? It'll be reported out at the September 9th meeting, what the rankings are.
Right.
Yes.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yes.
Have the 9th and then I change, okay,
Okay.
yes.
Number 4,
Yes, it will be reported out on September 9th, the top 3 to 5 ranks to be interviewed on the at the September 11th meeting at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Number 4, Board President Kellogg has appointed a subcommittee of 2 Board of Trustee members, that's Vice President Otto and Member Baxter, to develop questions I don't know what I'm running off with that, but.
To develop interview questions
interview
for the
questions.
September 11th.
Is that in addition to the 7 that were already
Yes.
submitted? Okay.
They're separate.
And the final individual to be selected will be announced at that meeting.
All right. So,
And there is to be it is recommended, no communications occur between the Board of Trustees and the applicants.
all right, could someone please take that and make it into a formal motion to the board, please?
Sure, I so move.
Motion by trustee Otto.
Second.
Second by trustee Baxter. Are there any other questions, comments on this? I mean, I compliment you all. To do a process like this in public is usually very difficult. So there is a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion, members of the board.
I just want to thank our secretary for being so tremendous and doing such a great job.
I'm not fired.
You're not fired. You should get a raise after all this.
For this one, this is not an easy process. So there is a motion and a second on the floor. No other questions, comments, members of the board at this time. Madam Secretary, if you could please call the roll on the motion.
Kellogg.
Aye.
Fired again. Vice President Otto.
Aye.
Member Baxter.
Aye.
Member Zia.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I want to just once again thank the members of the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee that got us here. But for that work, we would be flopping around up here trying to get this done, and this sort of framed what needed to be done. So Dick, thank you. David, thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of everyone, members
Karen,
of the board.
thank you. Eloy, thank you.
Yeah, it was, the framework you just heard us work our way through was actually the framework that the ad hoc committee had generally put together, knowing we needed a process to take us from this meeting to the next meeting. So my thanks for everyone for committing the time and energy, and hopefully the process will be reviewed as very, very fair and open, and we'll have a good individual to represent Area 2. Next item, moving on. The next item is consent calendar. I'm going to move approval of consent calendars with the exception.
Hold on, Board President.
I'm sorry.
Kellogg. We have to, we're on item 1.3, the revised board meeting calendar.
Right, and this is for, this is because we are moving a meeting because construction of the BCC campus.
Yes, and also changing the date of the retreat. We had previously listed it under the August meeting.
Right, and now it's a Tuesday. Our retreat is on the same day as our board meeting. Or I inadvertently said I think it was on a Friday. All right, so the motion then will be to revise the board meeting calendar. Do I entertain a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Otto.
Excuse me, is this moving the retreat to September 26th? 23rd, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Right.
I had requested a weekend or a holiday. I am a working individual from 9 to 5. I work because I have to, not because I choose to. So I made that request last time. I would really appreciate it if we can be mindful of that and make it a weekend or a Friday. That would be great.
For right now, it's going to be, just because we have to move these items around, we're going to at least schedule something, and it is for that Tuesday, which is what we traditionally do. We usually have a retreat on a Tuesday starting at 9 a.m. and then run up to our regular meeting. It is a long day. That's what we've been doing. So I don't have a second to the motion, by the way. I do need I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second then. Now discussions noted in for future consideration. Madam Secretary, if you could please call the roll on this item.
President Kellogg.
Aye.
Vice President Otto.
Aye.
Member Baxter.
Aye.
Member Zia.
All right, that is the revised board meeting calendar. The next item, I don't believe I need to make any action on this one because we've already done an addition of a special meeting in the original motion that we did previously. Pardon me?
We have to change the date.
All right, so the motion will be, if I entertain a motion to addition of a special meeting dated September 11th at 6 p.m. to appoint provisional trustee for Area 2. Entertain a motion to reflect that.
It's already on agenda items, so we're going to change it officially.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Otto. Is there a second to this?
Second.
Second by trustee Baxter. Questions, comments? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
President Kellogg?
Aye.
Vice President Otto?
Yes.
Member Baxter?
Aye.
And Member Zia?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving on to consent calendar. I'm going to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar with the exception of item 5.2, which has been pulled, item 6.1, 6.3, 6.4, 12.1, 12.2, 12.5, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10. The remaining members are items in the consent calendar. I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Baxter,
Second.
second by trustee Zia. Other comments on the consent count this time? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the consent calendar.
President Kellogg?
Aye.
Vice President Otto?
Aye.
Member Baxter?
Aye.
And Member Zia?
Aye.
Thank you. Consent calendar is approved with those exceptions. 5.2 has been pulled, not for discussion at this time. 6.1 under fiscal services, budget transfers. Chair recognizes trustee Zia.
Yes, thank you, President Kellogg. I know this is quite a number of items, and I think it's important that we have more background on this information that is presented in our board dockets and not just be placed on consent agenda automatically. 6.1A, I'd like to have an understanding of what that 2.122522 million on the other outgo that is going to services and operating expense. It seems the amount, 2.127, $2,127,105 is being transferred to the line items indicated. And I'd like to have an understanding of what that entails and why is it now categorized as services and operation expenses in the same amount.
I'd be happy to have Vice President Gable answer that.
Yes, thank you, President Oakley. As you can see there on the bottom of the page, we do detail out that particular budget transfer where we're moving $2,122,522 from reserves into the trans/bands cost of issuance account that totals $1,661,900. And then another $460,622 into the bad debt expense. That is to cover the student receivables that have been written off at the end of the year that are older than 3 years. We're required to write those off every year in accordance with auditing standards and guidelines. And as we've discussed previously, the $1.6 million is for the potential IRS costs related to the previous bond issues.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you. What do you mean issues?
Bond issuances.
Oh, okay. And is this, so when was the last, so what's the timeline for the 2.127 million that you're proposing to remove from those items of supplies and materials and other outgo, predominantly other outgo, to items that you have specified underneath it? What's the span of time of the transfer? Is it within a month? Is it within?
This was done during our year-end closing, so it was done towards the end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, is this going to continue every time the transfers, or is it just a one-time event?
Well, this transfer in particular was just for one time. We have budget transfers that appear on every single agenda item because as the year wears on, all the divisions and departments need to move the funds into the line items that they're going to be spending the funds. So you will see budget transfers on every single board agenda.
And I'm sorry, what was the other outgo again on the top item?
The other outgo, that is, in that particular instance, it's from reserves.
And what was the total reserves?
That we moved out.
Yes.
It's detailed right there down below that paragraph, $2,122,522.
What was the total amount of the reserves that we pulled the money from, is what I'm asking. The 2.1 million, was it the entire amount of the reserves? Is that what you
No,
said?
that's just, that was a piece of the reserves that we have in the unrestricted general fund.
What was the total amount that we're getting 2.122 million from?
The total amount of the reserves would have been $17,180,702. That was what our beginning reserves were on July 1st of 2013.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that number?
$17,180,702.
Great, thank you. The other item that I had a question on was 6.3. This is for the commercial warrants, unrestricted general fund 01, item 1. There was it seems like there is $1,066,999 to for that line item. Where is that money coming from, and how does it get distributed? It seems like it's going to our student body, and are those revenues that the district collects for the student body, or what does that entail, that amount?
Yes, when the students register for classes, they pay for their college service cards. All of those funds are deposited at the district along with the registration fees. And then annually at the end of the year, when we're finalizing and closing the books and reconciling all the items, we will cut a check to the ASB bank, which is basically the ASB checking account, for the college service card fees that have been collected for the year. So that's what that check represents.
Does that include book sales from our
No,
bookstore?
this is strictly for the college service cards.
Okay, great. Service cards, okay. The other item that I had a question on is the commercial warrants on the next page, General Obligation Fund 46. All those items that is listed 1 through 6. I'd just like to have an understanding of the selection process that was followed for these contracts. What was the term? When did we, if we did a competitive process, if we followed a competitive process, when did we do that? And also, like, how many bids did we receive? What was the lowest? Were they based on a low bid situation? Was it a qualification-based selection? How did we determine these pricing that is provided under item 1 through 6 to be fair and reasonable and the best value for the district?
On all of these items, these are payments that have already been made, and so these contracts have already gone to the board for approval, and we're paying the checks for the services rendered. All of our contracts that we enter into follow the same process, so it depends upon the value of the contract, on whether or not we bid it, if we get informal bids, if we get requests for quotes, or if we just purchase the item. So in each of these instances, depending upon what it was, we did either bid it. If we do bid it, then we select the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and that comes to the board. If we do a informal bid, then we are selecting the lowest informal bid on that as well. If it's for services, then we'll do a request for qualifications. We'll typically generate a list of qualified vendors that we can then select from, depending upon the type of contract that we are awarding that service for. We'll interview a couple firms, see which ones we think is going to fit best, and then we'll award based on that basis.
Can you please answer my question specific to each line item?
Okay, so for Harper Construction Company, that's the vendor that is doing the construction of our math technology building. We did that under a design build concept whereby we did a request for quotes, and we narrowed it down to 3 vendors, where the 3 vendors provided detailed schematic drawings, and then it was rated by a committee, and then we selected the lowest priced bid that came forward for the math technology building. That was done, I don't have the exact date, but it was about 2 years ago that we went through that and the board approved that process. The next one for Cordoba Corporation, this is the company that is our bond project construction management firm. They were hired when probably around in 2003, 2004. A process was done to evaluate project and construction managers at the time, and they were selected and approved by the board back at that point in time. Pima Corporation
Excuse me a second. Can we go back? What was the value of the contract that was let back in, what is that, 11 years ago, 2003, to Cordoba Corporation? Was that for the term of 10 years with this firm?
We have a new contract that we're working under with Cordoba Corporation that was dated July 1st of 2012. That contract currently expires on June 30th of 2016. The value of that contract is $20,388,232. The next line item for Pima Corporation, this is the vendor that we have for the stormwater runoff compliance project at the liberal arts campus. That is the contractor that's working on what we refer to as the Central Quad. This was done through a bid process, and we selected the lowest responsive bid. The next line item, A2Z Construct Inc. They are the company that put in the JJ Microgrid project at the Pacific Coast campus. Again, we did go out to bid for this project and selected the lowest responsive bidder. The next line item, GRD Consulting. This is a firm that we use, again, for smaller construction management, facility planning, and technical support items. And they were awarded on best value, experience, and qualifications. And then the next line item, Cambridge West.
Sorry, can you go back? How many, out of how many people did we select? How many proposals were submitted and we selected GRD?
I don't have that information. They've
Okay.
been, again, they've been working with the district for quite some time.
Okay, so is it, it may be a sole source contract then?
No, this consulting services, these are professional services rendered. We are not required to go out to bid or to do RFQs.
And I'm sorry, we're not required based on what?
Education code does not require us to bid certain professional services, and this would be one of those.
So the education code doesn't
The education
require us to bid out planning and technical support services for construction projects.
Correct.
Okay. I would like to find out how many proposals we did receive on that piece, if it's not too much trouble for you. And then the last one, is that the same category as the 5th item?
Cambridge West Partnership, yes, they provide professional services. They are the entity that helps us prepare our IPPs and our FPPs, which are the project proposals that we submit to the state in order to try to qualify for state funding. They also do our space inventory report as well as our 5-year construction plan. And again, they were awarded on best value, experience, and qualifications. We did previously use another firm a few years back who we were not satisfied with their services, and so they were switched over to Cambridge West.
Okay, great. So the other item is on 6.4, the 2013 and 2014. The basis for the budget for the SBDC Service Center programs. Is that how much we have grants for, or if you can give me some background on that for my education and information purposes, I'd appreciate it.
These line items are an adjustment to the budget, so there are augmentations that we received for these grants. The first one, the $545,000, is related to the calendar year 2014 grant. The next line item is related to our calendar year 2013 grant, the $94,076. So throughout the year, the Small Business Development Center, they do get augmentations as the grant wears on. And so once they get the augmentation, you'll see that we'll either increase or decrease the budget based upon the latest amount provided by the granting entity.
Is it possible to maximize this amount, or is it just something that is set and it's on automatic, or it's just we don't have any control over these grants? I'd certainly like to see more of these increases in the grants.
Both of these grants are already
Anne-Marie, I think
quite
Luann wanted
substantial.
to speak to this.
I think originally they were reduced due to the sequestration cuts provided by the federal government. Once the budget turned around on the federal government, they have increased those augmentations. And so, you know, for the full grant amount for calendar year 2014 is $3.6 million, over $3.6 million. And calendar year 2013 was over $3.3 million. So these are really quite substantial grants that we have, and these were just augmentations to that.
Luann, did you want to add to that, or?
No, just so you know, we have an agreed upon, we do a renewal every year with the Small Business Administration. We work with the district office in LA with the SBA, and we have an agreement about the number of businesses, the consulting hours, and the outcomes that are expected for the LA region. It's a 3-county area, Los Angeles, Ventura, Santa Barbara County. And sometimes we have been meeting those objectives and exceeding them, so we've had opportunities to be able to get augmentations as they come up. If we can match them, that's always the toughest thing to do, because we have to match them with our business partners.
I see. Wow, this says a lot about our district, that you guys are doing a great job on that. And I'd certainly like to understand a little bit more and see how we can support that effort. So item number 12.1, I had the same questions for all these contracts, and the selection process followed. And I mean, were these based on lowest cost providers, or was it qualification-based selection? And more importantly, what was the basis for the pricing and determining the these amounts to be fair and reasonable and the best value for the district?
So on the first item, Construct One Inc., as you can see there in the background, we do detail out that was something that went to bid, and we are selecting the lowest responsive bidder. With TYR Incorporated.
Ms. Gable, for a minute. There's a typographical error in that section. If you look at the second paragraph, it says Pacific Coast Campus, but it's really Liberal Arts Campus.
Oh.
I used to edit books for a living.
Wow. Good catch, Trustee Baxter.
Can I just ask a question? I'm following on an email. Are you going to ask additional questions to this email that was responded? Because you're really following all of these.
I haven't. Yeah, those are the questions that I'm asking, and I haven't had a chance to review my emails, so I'd like to have these addressed. And I think the public deserve the right to know about this things that we approve, and perhaps we should have asked before.
They have been asked before.
Oh, okay. So it's just not codified in our board dockets, and we spent hours talking about salaries, and yet these are bond money and taxpayer money, and I'd like to certainly get more information on it going forward. Otherwise, I'm going to have to keep pulling these items, and it's going to be very tormenting. I hope that it's not, but I
Go ahead and continue. I just want to make sure I'm following the email response from Anne-Marie, and I'm following it for exactly what you're asking, the response. I didn't know if you were going to ask more, so please continue.
Okay, so where are we? I guess we're on TYR Inc. So this contractor is, they provide inspector of record services for us. We did do a request for qualifications. That was RFQ 11001. Like I said, with the professional services, if we do a request for qualifications, we will put the vendors on an approved list, and based upon each project and the time detailed into the project, then we will select this vendor. So TYR is a company that we have selected to be the inspector of record for services for our GG building at the Pacific Coast campus.
And I'm sorry, that was based on a qualification-based selection, the best quality, and how many proposals did we receive out of how many, and how long did we do the advertisement for this contract?
We do request for qualifications. We renew those lists every 5 years for the various types of services that may be provided, which includes inspector of records, architects, or any testing services that we use on the bond.
So how many proposals did we receive on this?
I don't have that information. They're one of 4 or 5. I'm seeing 5 nodding people in my audience. So they are one of 5 inspector of record firms that are on our approved qualification list.
And how do we determine the value to be fair and reasonable, and how do we vet out the amount to be best value for the district?
They all come within about the same amount. There's not a real large variance between the rates that are used for the inspector of records. We typically do try to go with the lowest rated ones, but some of the inspector of record firms don't have the various levels of the inspectors that we need. So we need to make sure that when we have a project, that we're selecting the firm that has the qualified staff as required by the Division of State Architects on all of our construction jobs. So the next item is Hill Partnership. This is the architect that is in place and that we're recommending to be the architect for buildings QQ and RR. Again, they were on a list of our qualifications for architect services, and in looking at the projects, they have the qualifications and the specialization in that area. They're also the architects that have designed the MDAB project over at PCC, so we were wanting to keep with the same consistent look and feel of the campus, and so in order to do so, you need to stay with the same architect, otherwise you're typically going to get something that looks completely different.
Okay, so if a new consultant or a contractor wants to do business with us, and we're in these long-term contractual relationships, how does one get an opportunity to do business with us? I mean, it sounds like once you're, I just want to understand, just because an architect does 1 or 2 buildings, then why don't we just issue a request for proposal for all buildings and just get the same architect, and not get people's hopes up that they're going to have an opportunity to other future proposals or bids. I'm a little bit, I hope I understand that we're following a competitive process, and we're not just giving a contract because so and so did building, the same type of building. Am I misunderstanding your point?
What we do is about every 5 years, we will go through and do a request for qualifications where we'll go out and have vendors apply. The bond management team, the contracts and purchasing team, as well as the facilities team will review all of those proposals. They will then go down and shortlist it to where there's, on the architect side, about 10 architects that are approved that we can then select from for each project that's coming up in the next several years. When a project comes up, that same team, our bond management team, our facilities team, our purchasing and contracts team will review the list. They'll look at the specializations of each of those firms, and they'll make a recommendation on who they think would be the best fit. It's not here, but I don't think it's here yet. You will see probably on the next board item where we are awarding a contract to Steinberg Architects for Building P. And then it's a different architect that we're awarding for Building J. And that's based upon interviews that are made from the architects to see which one has the best specialization, which one has the best understanding of the scope of the work, and which one we think will have the best guideline and guidance to help us get through DSA. Working with the state on any of our projects is not an easy thing, and so we need to make sure that any architect that we select understands the DSA process and has gone through the DSA process.
And how do we make sure the incumbent doesn't have an unfair advantage over a new company that wants to do business with us?
Can I make a suggestion, Trustee Zia? Because we are completely off the agenda item, and now we're on the process that the district
It's a question on the agenda item.
finish. Would it be useful to come back at some time and have a presentation on exactly how we do our bidding process? We've had that for the board over the years, and that way, because you're getting into issues of the policy and the practice versus the agenda item, we're happy to continue to answer questions. But if you're asking questions about the bid process, I think it would be helpful to set up time on the agenda to allow the people who are in the process to come and report to the board and answer questions about the process.
I appreciate that, Eloy, and I think that's a great idea. My question was specifically on this contract and dovetailing on the answer given that it was because the architect was the same architect for other buildings, and that's what I'm trying to understand and get clarity about. And I would just suggest that perhaps in the future meetings, we have a little bit more background information than the title of these contracts and a two-line sentence about the context. And I do appreciate you guys have added the background. I would just elaborate on it. These questions that I'm asking, I'm going to continue to ask for each and every one of these items to get get clarity and make sure that the process followed is satisfactory in my viewpoint. I'm not going to approve something without having an understanding of what was entailed. Perhaps the solution can be that it could be provided with our docket so we don't have to spend so much time. It's just a suggestion.
All right, so what's your next?
It's Converse Consultants item, the next item.
Converse Consultants, again, this is a company that does our construction materials testing. They were on the list based upon the request for qualifications number 10001 that was performed, and so they have been selected or recommended for the Building GG project at the Pacific Coast campus.
Okay, great. And item number 12.2, I see this contract. It's on its 8th amendment to increase the contract amount and get it to a total of 2.139, well, let's say 2.14 million paid from general obligation bond funds. So how do we, how is this contract amendment? Well, why are we at the 8th amendment? Are we adding scope? And why are we adding scope if we are? And is it something that there was a driving factor that we couldn't have gone and advertised for it, and it was an imminent matter that only this consultant can perform?